Yeah, they're set for 5. They're both set for 5:56 p.m.
Okay, we're live. So yes, welcome. We've had a few hiccups just then, but yes, welcome back to the Play Pouch. I'm joined by my ultimate chums, Nick and Alan, and we are discussing what the hell is going on at Bioware. So, Nick, I know that you are very passionate about this topic, so why don't you take it away?
Okay, so I know you're a Bethesda fan, and Alan, I know you kind of like them both. I like Bethesda as well, but BioWare was, for me, the definitive RPG makers when I was growing up, with a little bit of a nod to Square Enix or SquareSoft before they became Square Enix, really, with the early Final Fantasy games.
Yeah.
And the reason why I brought this up now is Bioware have been in the news lately for not good reason. Which
bit of background interference there with Alice.
Yeah. Bless
him. Go on, Nick.
So the sales figures have finally come out for Dragon Age Veilguard. Now, I don't think any of us played that game, and I think we've all got reasons for it. Some of them I think were because it didn't look that amazing, and I think some of us were also put off a little bit by some of the activists that were promoting the game. And you can come at me if people don't like me calling them activists, but I'll call them what I think they are. That's where their agenda was less about making a video game, more about pushing their ideology. Now, they're allowed to have their ideology, but I don't want it force-fed to me in their games. This is my stance.
Yeah.
Anyway, it didn't do very well, and the reports were, and this is the wording for it, 1.5 million people engaged in the game. That's the key word there. So that isn't 1.5 million sales.
Yeah, that's jargon talk. That.
Yeah. Now, the reason why this is quite a massive letdown is, and I have done some research for once before anyone comes at me. Let me give you some sales figures for some of BioWare's other games, and you can see a trend here. Okay. The first Dragon Age, 3.2 million sales. Anthem, the big failure that was Anthem that we all thought was terrible, 5 million sales.
Wow.
Mass Effect Andromeda, another game regarded as a failure, 5 million sales.
Wow.
Now we go on to some of their better games. Mass Effect 2, 5 million. And the combined sales of all the Mass Effect games, I thought I had Mass Effect 1 down here, but I haven't. I must have missed it. Anyway, the sales for all the free Mass Effect games was over 14 million combined for the free original trilogy. And this is the one that I think sticks out and should tell you a lot. The last Dragon Age game, Inquisition, 12 million.
Jeez, really?
So they have gone. Yeah, they have gone from 12 million for Dragon Age Inquisition to 1.5 million or under.
Yeah, that's not good.
From Dragon Age 3 to 4. So that's why it was in my worst games of the year list, because it literally has killed that franchise off. I don't like the franchise as much as Mass Effect. I didn't mind it. I didn't hate it like you did, Alan. And I know, Pete, you're not exactly enamored of it either, but I did like the first Dragon Age, and Inquisition was not bad for what it was.
No, I didn't mind the Dragon Ages. I thought they were good, but I felt that they were limited, and the Inquisition I really enjoyed. I don't think I've played all of them, but I think I've dabbled in most of them, so I don't have an issue with them at all, except the latest one. And let's just address the elephant in the room here, and we're talking about the diversity that they've injected into the game, and that's where they've fallen at. The first hurdle, really, in the conception of it all, is that when people play games, they don't want to be reminded of real life, and that's what they're doing. That's what they try to do, and we want to get away from it all. We want to escape into a fantasy world where we can exact our fantasies. Hence the name itself, the word fantasy. And when you inject current culture into these kind of mediums, it's never going to work, bruv. Why do you think it's going to work? It's not. So this is what's happened. They tried it with Andromeda, and they tried it with Veilguard, and this is what's happened. So I don't really have much sympathy for them, because you should have realized after Andromeda, all the talent left.
It turns out that BioWare themselves, EA, haven't had much sympathy either, because they've fired the majority of the writing team, and a lot of the devs who worked on BioWare, the head writers, 2 writers, they must be they're married. Trick Weeks and Karin West Weeks.
Well, cool.
So one of them is a lead writer. I think Trick Weeks is the lead writer. They've both been relieved of their duties, and apparently the staff of BioWare is down to 100 now. So they've been downsized by EA. Now, Mass Effect 5 is still being made. Whether or not, I mean, it's a long way away. You're looking, I reckon, at 5 years.
We know that the budget has been cut for it, and there's a lot less developers than there was. Now, whose fault is it? Because is it really BioWare's fault? All these talented developers that left, and why did they leave? Was it BioWare's fault, or was it EA's fault?
Probably EA.
It depends. Like if you mean just developers who do the coding, then they have little say on the impact of the game.
The big picture, yeah.
Yeah, but the writers, now, for all intents and purposes, Dragon Age Veilguard isn't the worst game ever made, right? Technically and stuff like that.
Mm.
What lets it down the most, and none of us have played it, so we are going on what other people have said. Angry Joe's done a review. Many others have done reviews on it. The biggest problems with it is the writing. It's the writing of the character, the writing and the characters. It's the storyline and the characters, which in an RPG is paramount to its success.
Mm.
Now, the combat has been simplified, and this is a growing trend in RPGs that I'm not a fan of, to the point where I don't know in the BioWare games anymore, based upon the last couple, and I include Andromeda in this. I'm not including the original Mass Effect, because you could still give your companions directions and they could still be helpful in a fight. But they've gone to the point now where your companions you can't even give orders to. So what is the point of giving your companions? You might as well be running around by yourself.
Exactly. True. Yeah. Obviously, the idea of having a companion is like it's a it's an intelligent individual who can go out and do things on its own, and obviously it's going to have to be nerfed because you don't want it to do everything, but yeah.
And so they did this Andromeda where your companions were, and I think that there's bigger reasons why Andromeda failed, but stuff like that didn't do any favors, because you couldn't control your teammates. So your teammates, I mean, in Andromeda, they lacked personality anyway. Again, we're saying a lot of similar stuff here. The Andromeda writing again. What was the main problem with Andromeda? The gameplay was really good, I thought, in Andromeda. Really good.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
The storyline and the characters, dreadful.
Yeah, awful.
It's the same thing with Veilguard. So they haven't learned, have they?
Well, it's like the writers didn't go to writing school, or they're heavily influenced by current affairs, and that just
too busy being activists, Pete.
Yeah, another activist, Maguire.
Activist, yes.
Yeah, no, it's just guys, don't just make it a fantasy story, for crying out loud. And you try to deviate from the cliches as much as you like, but that's where the originality and the talent comes in. If you don't know how to do that, then you're not going to sell any of these games.
Thing is, it's a common theme in media now, where they're just injecting ideologies into films, TV shows, games, and they're all getting pretty much shit on by everybody. So at what point do they actually say this isn't working? let's go back to the way things used to be.
It's I don't know what's happening at the top. It's like they have this agenda for sort of forcing diversity and sort of trying to bloat the numbers for these types of people, like trans and gay and lesbian people and all that kind of thing. It's just like, it's not a common thing in this day and age. Even in today's day and age, it's not really that common. It's like less than 1%, certainly of this country. So it's like, why would you try to enforce this on us, like, consistently? We see it everywhere, not just games. So I'd like to think that there's all these companies at the top are starting to realize. I know Disney's started to realize already, and hopefully other companies will follow. So it's just like, look, this is not what people want, mate. You're losing hundreds of millions of pounds or dollars or whatever. So just change. Do Bethesda? Do Bioware have the capacity to change? Obviously, they're a shell of their former selves, and they've gone down to basic infrastructure. So do we think that they have a chance?
Personally, I fear for Mass Effect 5. Even though putting that stuff in the Mass Effect world makes more sense than it does in a fantasy world, because Earth is a thing in Mass Effect. It's way into the future, stuff like that, right? So I don't want it in there, but I could buy it a little bit more because it's set in, not reality, but like I say, it's set on Earth. Earth is a thing, where how many hundreds of years in the future. So I could understand it a little bit more in the Mass Effect universe than I could in a fantasy world where stuff like gender scars and stuff like that. As I said to Pete multiple times, do a healing spell. Boom, scars gone, right? And don't say no. Yes, that can happen in that fantasy world. Yes, healing, right? Yeah. So don't give me that crap.
Well, it's in that case, it's a case of the not arrogance, the egotism of wanting to show off those scars. Then, if that's not a thing, it's just like, well, why would you want to show off those scars anyway if you don't want to heal them?
The argument's probably going to be there's going to be some people who are proud of those scars who are going to wear it like a badge of honor.
Yeah,
that would be I can already say that would be the argument. I mean, whatever suits you, mate. I mean,
well, you're just you're alienating the mass fan base even more, then, aren't you? By doing that, it's just like or I should say, you're risking alienating them even more, because Jesus, man. We don't want to know. We don't want to know about people's sexual orientation. That shouldn't be part of the main construct of a story. Like, constantly reminding us, all these scenes of them semi-naked with like scars all over them, for crying out loud.
And also, there's scenes in the game. Like I say, none of us have played it, but I have watched videos showing these scenes. There's scenes where people get spoken down to because of certain verbiage they use. There is a non-binary character in the game, just in case you didn't know.
Which game were we talking about?
Veilguard.
Okay.
There's a non-binary character in the game, and there's one of the characters. I think she was. She was a rogue character from one of the other games. A lady, I forget her name. It's been a long time since I played Inquisition. And she's in the game, and apparently she gets told off because she refers to them as a her. And then one of the and this is actually in the game. This is dialogue in the game. She calls this non-binary character a her and gets scolded by the other characters for it. This is a fantasy world game, and we have this conversation in a fantasy world game.
For fuck's sake.
No, it's a scene in the game. I've seen it. I've seen the scene.
Ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. We don't care.
For fuck's sake.
We don't care what your orientation is. We just don't want to be reminded of it all the time. Okay, that's all.
Now,
that's all we're saying.
Yeah, we'll just watch the news if we want all this.
The sexuality has been in all the Bioware games, right? And I think it was done of a hell of a lot more tasteful in the older where they weren't shoving it in your. I mean, what they did, like in the Mass Effect games, right? It's generally the way it worked is that your character could be male or female, and you can make your character homosexual or gay, right? You could have. There was male romance options for male and female characters, and there was female romance options as well. But they did it in a much more tasteful way and didn't shove it in your face.
Yeah.
And that goes for the early Dragon Age games. So there being gay characters is not a problem for me. It's been in all the Bioware games. I don't think it was in Knights of the Old Republic, Alan. To be fair, I don't think it was there. But in the Mass Effect games, it was there right from the beginning, and I never had a problem with it. Of course, I didn't choose those options because I'm not inclined that way. But them being there isn't a problem for me. But wasn't shoved down your throat, mate, like it's become.
Yeah, I watched Series 2 of Squid Game, and there's a trans character in that, but it was done so tastefully. I actually ended up quite liking the character. He was, just like she was a powerhouse. Basically, she just sort of, I don't know, she had good morals, So I mean, it can be done well. It's just stop throwing it in our face. I mean, is there really much more to be said about all of this? Because, I've
got a bit more, because there was even more fallout. This is gonna entertain you guys.
Yeah, go on then.
So I'm gonna steal a term from Jim Sterling, Stephanie Sterling, whatever.
Mm.
I find him funny, her funny, them funny, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
And he's got I'll use his name that he calls. So the EA. The CEO of the EA, Android Wilson. His name's Andrew Wilson, but the joke is Android Wilson.
Right.
He made a comment when asked about why Veil God was a failure. This should worry every Bioware fan, every Mass Effect fan. What I'm about to tell you, because you can make into this what you will, and it seems crazy considering what happened to other games of this genre. He honestly believes, apparently, that the reason why Dragon Age Veilguard failed was because they deviated from it being a live service game, and they decided to make it a single-player game.
Yeah.
They deviated from it being They deviated what from being a live service game?
Well, you heard the rumors like I did that when Dragon Age, at the time, Dragon Age 4, before it got a name, was made as a live service. It was planned to be a live service game, and some of the combat certainly reminds me of a live service. Originally, it was meant to be a live service game, but because Anthem failed so badly, they deviated from that and went back to making Dragon Age Veilguard a single-player game. And the CEO, who will decide most things, believes, or at least is what he told people, that the reason why is because they deviated from making it a live service game. So basically, if it would have been a live service game as they originally planned, then it would have sold more. Because it's a single player game, that's why it didn't sell as well.
And live service games have such a good track record.
Yep, like say the Justice League, Skull and Bones, Concord, Avengers, Anthem itself. I mean, Anthem sold 5 million, so I suppose if he looks at it that way, he's like, oh, Anthem sold 5 million, even though I'm sure most people return their copies after a month. But
yeah, exactly.
Or sold their copies. And this is the CEO, so if he gets his way, what do you think Mass Effect 5 might look like? Very scary indeed. If he honestly believes that, and he wields enough power to decide what BioWare does, which he probably does, assuming he's still there when it by that time. But if they make Mass Effect 5 a live service, wow.
I hope they don't. I hope they learn. But it's see, this is like their last chance saloon, like really last chance saloon, I assume.
The thing is, we said that before, didn't we? We all said more or less, or at least me and you did, Pete, when we've spoken about Bioware in the past, that if Dragon Age fails, then surely that'll be it. It has failed.
I don't think EA has an issue with just dissolving them and moving on, to be quite honest. So, I mean, it's like they've been given, this is like their second chance now, or now it's their third. with Mass Effect 5. So yeah, I guess we'll just have to see. So yeah, I mean, like, I don't want Bioware to fail. I just don't want it to be under this. I want them to go independent, like CD Projekt Red, and I want them to sort of grow again and produce good stuff. I don't want a company that used to be good to die. It's the same with Bethesda. I don't want them to be I want them to do better. I want everyone to do better.
Well, we all do.
A lot of people who made the original Mass Effects have gone. Not all of them. Some of the people like Casey Hudson, he's gone. But there is still some people there who did work on the original. So there is still some people there who knows what it takes to make quality single player RPGs. How outnumbered are they now? Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah. If there's 20% of them left who worked on original games, then that's a problem, isn't it? I believe the person in charge, excuse me, I haven't got his name in front of me, but he was one of the lead writers on the original Mass Effect. So the fact that he seems to be in charge of this project can give you maybe a little bit of optimism that at least the guy in charge was there for the original Mass Effect game, so would hopefully have an idea of what works and what doesn't, or what the fans liked and what the fans didn't. But how much power he wields, like I say, when you've got the CEO of EA more or less saying should have been a live service, mate, then if it comes down from the top and says, okay, yeah, you can have your Mass Effect 5, yeah, but at the very least it's going to have a lot of live service elements. Maybe they won't make it a live service game, just a live service game, but you can bet it's going to have an awful lot of tacked on stuff for multiplayer that maybe doesn't need to be there, and they're going to put a lot of resources, I imagine, into some kind of multiplayer stuff.
Probably.
I've got a name for you.
What's that?
Michael Gamble.
Okay.
I think you're right. Yeah.
It's part of the Mass Effect series since 2010. So yeah. Apparently, Mass Effect 5 is in good hands.
Well, they're not going to say it's in bad hands, are they?
Yeah, of course they're not.
Whatever. We'll see.
I'll give it when I see it.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, like, it's just one of those things. Like every company is struggling at the moment. So, yeah, it's.
I've said it to you, Pete, about I'd be worried for the Elder Scrolls. I'm very worried.
Already,
I'm very worried for So you should be, and I should be very worried for Mass Effect.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately for us, the RPGs that we grew up with, the majority of these companies seem to be going down a dogs. CD Projekt Red, we're hopeful for The Witcher 4. Oh my goodness! Please let that be good.
Oh yeah,
because it might be the only one we're getting anytime soon. Is my point.
I'm pretty confident. Witcher 4 is going to be fine. There's no issues there. I'm pretty confident of that. So, all right, everyone. So we're going to leave it there. I think, unless there's anything else someone wants to say about BioWare.
Not really. Just screw the activists. You're allowed to be activists. Fine, by all means, do what you want, but don't preach it in our video games, please.
Just glue yourself to a road in the middle of London, and whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
What they called, Alan? Just for oil? Is that the people who do that?
Them, yeah, just for oil.
The orange powder or something. Yeah, whatever. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone. Until next time, we shall see you soon. Take care.